Chosen ones, you put the head of a cult in their place without understanding they had a complete system based on terror, control, and manipulation. Their following marched like puppets on a string, hanging onto every word this so-called leader uttered. But then you came up. The gathering isn't small. A mass of people squeezed together, driven there by devotion or obligation. You cannot tell which. The energy is heavy, an unspoken rule forcing them to listen, to obey, to belong. At the middle, the cult leader stands. They don't waver or fidget. They have perfected this performance. Every breath, every gesture, every pause is purposeful. They anticipate surrender, and for a considerable amount of time, they have gotten it. Their looks serve as a reflection of trust that has been conditioned into obedience when the people gaze up at them. Desperate for their words and acceptance, some lean forward. Others stay still, taking care to seem just loyal. The cult leader hasn't yet turned to face you. They are not required to. Even while you stand in the middle of the throng, they sense you. Something is disturbed by your presence, a force that cannot be seen or heard, but is known. The cult leader's smooth, well-practiced voice fills the room with unwavering assurance. And so, as it was written, the way is clear. The righteous will be set apart, chosen, delivered. The unworthy will fall into the abyss, for they have refused the truth. It is intended to be definitive. As usual, its purpose is to shut the room in a chord. However, something changes. A brief pause in the throng, an overly prolonged breath, a gaze that is stolen toward you. The head of the cult observes. They ought not to. There is a primordial part of them that sees you as more than just another body in the sea of obedience. And they hesitate when they finally look into your eyes. It is not evident to the masses or to individuals who have been conditioned to believe that their leader is unfailing. You can tell when their belief falters, even if it's only for a split second, a little instant, or a single, subtle fracture in the foundation they've worked so hard to establish. And it's sufficient. You don't speak louder. You don't quarrel. You do not yell at them. You are not required to. One statement, one thing, and one contradiction are all you say. It's not a big deal. It's not aggressive. It is not accompanied by anger or force. They can't deny it. That's just the truth. Not because of what you said, but because they are aware that their own lie is accurate. The weight of it shifts against them. The ensuing quiet is incorrect and out of character. Something frightening, but not yet anarchy or uncertainty, ripples through the audience. It is noticed by the cult leader. They were afraid of truth, not force or insurrection. You also took it with you. They arrive even if you don't search for them. Since speaking to you is an act of war, they are terrified of being seen with you rather than of you. The youngest, the ones who haven't been completely shattered yet, the ones who still remember what it was like to have doubts before the punishment taught them otherwise, they still come. When it occurs for the first time, you sense it before you hear it. A change in the atmosphere, a shadow that shouldn't be there. Then a voice, little more than a whisper, says, "I've felt it for so long." You turn, but they're already moving, leading you into the shelter of the dark and away from open areas, not because they trust you, but out of desperation. The inquiries are hurried, fearful, and come in short bursts, as if they are being asked too soon for guilt to catch up. They wince at each query, as if they're expecting the walls to hear them, as though they're anticipating the inevitable retribution. Something's not right. Why does everything hurt? Why does it feel like we are never enough? You don't respond right away because what they already know is more important than what you say. It's seen in their eyes. Beneath years of training, the truth has already been developing within of them. All they needed was someone to demonstrate its veracity in front of them. Though you are not alone in your thoughts, you are the first to live free from the fear that confines them. The terror no longer grips you as firmly as it once did when they see it in you. Though it isn't gone yet, optimism is taking its place. Something perilous, something the cult leader won't be able to control. The hesitancy, the lingering looks, the silent resistance that forms in the pauses between unsaid words. You sense it before the cult leader does. It's not yet loud, but it's becoming louder. Their movements show it. They are less coordinated and submissive. Before bowing, some people pause. In an attempt to fit in, some bow lower than previously. Some people don't even bow. Not immediately, the cult leader observes. Clad in the appearance of dominance, they stand as they always have, speaking to their supporters as if nothing has changed. However, something has. The weight of their voice is diminished. The finality of their instructions is not the same. Furthermore, they do not see steadfast commitment when they gaze at their people. They see ambiguity. They notice you just because you are there, not because you are doing anything. Their greatest weapon was always fear. It was the silent rule that kept everyone in line and the invisible rope around everyone's neck. However, when people lose faith in the person in charge, terror does not function as it once did. The cult leader senses that their hold is loosening, thread by thread. They tighten their grip, but it is ineffective. Their words become more acerbic, their penalties harsher, and their presence burdened with anticipation. However, it is ineffective because actual power is too strong for fear-based control to endure. You are powerful because you don't fear them, not because you demand it or coerce them. And they can't stand it more than anything else. They come to you in silence because their questions have outgrown their fear, not because they are loyal or trustworthy. You don't request their follow. They aren't called to revolt. Nevertheless, they congregate. A tentative tap on a door, a person standing too long in the dark, or a murmur that is barely audible are the first few. Then one more and one more, until the murmurs become discussions, and discussions become disclosures. They research, they recall, they escape. Their once indestructible barriers start to crumble. The bonds they thought were holy start to corrode. They start to lose the impact of the words they were made to repeat. Because this goes beyond simple disobedience, the cult leader senses it and becomes terrified. This goes beyond simple disobedience. This is the restoration of truth to those from whom it was taken. You do not lead them, says Matthew 15:14, for they are blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. You only stand, and they decide for themselves to travel in the direction of truth. By waking, the false empire is falling apart, not by force. The cult leader is no longer able to ignore it. They are letting go. You are the focal point of their waning power. They call out to you with power, expecting you to bow, not with benevolence or an outstretched hand. They have faith in their own strength, their presence's weight, and the unwavering love they have developed. You don't kneel, however. You don't quarrel. You don't make a plea. You don't flinch at all. Speaking confidently, the cult leader uses a voice that has been trained to dominate and command. They cloak what they say in dogma, scripture, and the appearance of reality. However, you can see right through it. They anticipate obedience. They anticipate dread. However, you keep quiet about them. They anticipate compliance. They anticipate that you will bend. But you tell them the truth. And while the masses watch, their illusion is shattered, since they are nothing without belief. They see the cult leader as a scared, desperate person, attempting to hold onto an empire based on sand. Violence and fists are not used in this combat. You have already won in the battle of perception. They can't stop you. They can't keep you quiet. Thus, they turn to control, which is what they know best. However, words are no longer powerful. Fear is no longer a barrier. Their voice no longer makes the people shudder. The cult leader then resorts to ritual, their last weapon. The change in the air, the smoldering tension of something pushed, out of place, desperate. You sense it before you see it. They meet behind closed doors. You don't pursue them. You don't become involved. You allowed them to labor against their own will. They call names. They create sigils. They utter incantations that are not intended to be heard. They raise their voices in command, demand, and entreaty. However, nothing occurs. Nature is against them. Since power does not yield to the desperate, the energy does not respond to them. The room stirs. Their own followers move nervously, eyes darting to one another. The terror has returned. But it is not of you. They are the ones. Louder, sharper, and more powerful, the cult leader makes another attempt. However, there is complete stillness after that. You don't need to speak because whatever they send back to them comes back to them full force. They sink inward under the weight of their own goals. The power they attempted to exert, the incantations, the rituals. It was never theirs in the first place. They know it's finished when they see you. Almost a whisper, the first voice is quiet. We were deceived. It echoes through the quiet like a tiny but permanent fissure in stone. There's another voice, this one louder. The cult leader tenses. We were used. They hear it. You hear it. Everyone else does too. Something changes. The weight of the truth, once shouted out loud, causes the air to thicken. A slow growing tide turns against its ruler as the voices rise one by one, not out of fear or obedience, but out of realization. We were never free. We believed the lies. We sacrificed everything for nothing. The cult leader attempts to talk, but their voice is not as powerful. True truth, which is stronger than ideology and control, overpowers it and causes it to stumble. The bonds they believe to be indestructible are coming loose, not by accident but voluntarily. You are not required to guide them. You are no longer considered an outsider by them. They see you as a reminder that they were never really confined. Hi, selected one. Now take a look at your life. Check out ours. You're back to your life now. Back in our place. You could be in the Obsidian Inner Order, but unfortunately, you're not. Imagine weekly group calls with over 450 selected individuals that are recorded and accessible at any time for your education. Not only is our private Discord operational, but it's alive and humming with innovations, ideas, and that unstoppable chosen energy. And welcome to Chosen Singles, where soulmates connect based on cosmic alignments, rather than cheesy pickup lines for all of you romantics out there. In addition to our video specials that are too daring, too unvarnished, or too spicy for YouTube, Star Chamber members get access to private interviews with real, targeted people who have endured the most trying times and live to share their stories. This is a revolution of spirit and soul, not simply a community. Now, check your DMs. Return the favor. The description contains the link to join. Claim destiny instead of merely swiping right on it. The Inner Order of Obsidian. Lives like a chosen one, feels like magic, and smells like ascension. One comes first, followed by another. A step back, a head turn, a person moving stealthily through the crowd. You see it unfold in waves. Whole families, then dozens. You don't order them out. You are not required to. They are making their own decision. When the cult leader notices it as well, they get alarmed. Their voices shout with desperation as they cry out. Every name they use and every order they attempt to issue causes their meticulously constructed facade of power to crumble. They exclaim, "Do not be deceived." The statement, "You belong here, you will be lost without me," is no longer being heard. You watch helplessly as the very foundation they established starts to fall apart under them. When the cult leader realizes something terrifying, that they are nothing without followers, their voice shifts from begging to threats to nothing at all. They are currently by themselves. As soon as you go outdoors, you sense it. The air is changed, lighter, free. The burden that used to push against every door, wrap around every discussion, and smother every doubtful breath is no longer there. The town is no longer a place of terror. The cult leader does not own it. The bonds that kept it together in silence no longer belong to it. It's also its own for the first time. They now look at you with expectancy rather than dread or doubt, since, in their view, you brought them here. When no one else would stand, you did. When quiet was required, you spoke. You demonstrated that it was possible to break the unseen shackles. They so wait for you to advance, assume your position in the forefront, and lead them into the future. However, you stay put since they no longer need a leader. They learn to obey, rely on, and serve from the cult leader. Furthermore, nothing would have changed if you had replaced them and stood where they had been. Because actual power sets people free rather than rules, you remain where you are. Furthermore, they were always intended to be their own bosses. Now they see it, and one by one they move away from you and toward their own destiny. Because this town is no longer a throne's property. It is theirs. You go in triumph, not exile. The weight of chains is not on the road under you. The cries of invisible masters are not spoken in the air. The quiet does not plead with you to comply. You were never intended to be imprisoned inside their delusions. Thus, it is yours. You were never intended to bow, to be owned, dominated, or shattered. Their biggest error was that. They believed that by weaving you into their web, binding you to their dogma, and drawing you into the cycle of dread that nourished their throne, they could mold you in the same way that they molded the others. They realized, however, that you were never theirs to command. They kept such a tight eye on you for that reason. They attempted to manipulate you before you even talked because of this. You were the storm they dreaded, not because you took away their power, but because you showed that they never had any, which is why they reacted violently when their hold started to loosen. It's not you who has sealed their destiny. You don't curse them. You don't pursue them. You don't have to. Their penalty has already been written. The weight of a throne that never really existed haunts them as they are imprisoned inside their own ruins, surrounded by the echoes of their own deceit. You go unaffected, unconcerned, and untouchable. You destroyed a phony kingdom in addition to overthrowing a cult leader. The issue still stands. Has anybody else seen what you have? Share your story. Have you ever seen the breakdown of someone's control in real time? Have you ever seen dishonesty firsthand before the person ever spoke? Remind them that reality will always triumph over delusion.